I can't pronounce this name, Dajuka Tesla, the Earth Mother, who cared for Nikola, was of rare tenderness, was a most remarkable woman, and assuredly possessed advanced spiritual powers. It has been said that she, too, was a Venusian, and if this is true, it accounts for her very unusual abilities. She was the eldest child in a family of 7 children. Her father was a minister of the Serbian Orthodox Church. Her mother had become blind after the 7th child was born, and Dajuka unhesitatingly took charge of the entire household. She never attended school, nor did she learn even the rudiments of reading and writing at home. Yet she moved with ease in cultured circles, as did her family. Here was a woman who could neither read nor write, yet she possessed literary abilities far beyond those of a person of considerable education. Tesla himself never wearied of talking about his remarkable mother and described how she had absorbed by ear all the cultural riches of her community and her nation. Like Nikola, she apparently had the power of instant recall. Nikola said that she could recite without error long passages from the Bible. She could repeat thousands of verses of the national poetry of her country. It was because of her great interest in poetry that Nikola, in his busy American days as a Superman, still found time to translate and have published some of the best examples of Serbian sages. His mother was also famed throughout her home provinces for her artistic ability, often expressed in beautiful needlework. She possessed remarkable manual dexterity, and Nikola said her fingers were so sensitive that she could tie 3 knots in an eyelash, even when she was past 60 years of age. She had an excellent grasp of philosophy, and apparently a practical understanding of mechanical and technical devices. She needed a loom for household weaving, so she designed and built one. She did not think of herself as an inventor, yet she built many labor-saving devices and instruments for her household. In addition, she was so skillful in handling business and financial matters that she managed all accounts for her household as well as for her husband's church. Nikola's Earth Father was the son of an army officer, and as a young man set out on a military career. But he was soon disillusioned, for he was irked by the discipline, and turned to his true calling in the literary field. He wrote poetry, articles on current problems, and philosophical essays. This led quite naturally to the ministry, giving him an opportunity to write sermons and to speak from the pulpit. He did not limit himself to the usual church topics, but ranged far and wide, covering subjects of local and national interest concerning labor, social, and economic problems. Until Nikola was 7 years of age, the father had a parish church in Simja, an agricultural community in the high plateau region in that part of the Alps, which stretch from Switzerland to Greece. This, then, was the childhood environment of the boy from Venus. It was a life filled with joy. He had an ideal home with a loving, understanding family. He lived in a magnificent countryside, close to nature. He was a boy like other little boys up to a certain point, the point at which he became the Superboy, foreshadowing the Superman. And so it was that he lacked human companions, a state not of loneliness, but of aloneness that was to continue throughout his physical incarnation. The unlighted ones whom he met everywhere through the years felt sorry for him because they assumed he was lonely. Tesla never tried to explain his position, for he knew he would meet with no understanding from an alien world. To the end of his time in a physical body, he lived at the very center, the very core of a magnificent solitude, listening always to the voice of the silence. As a boy, Nikola liked nothing better than to wander in the woods and over the mountains near his home. His little friends did not understand or share his boundless enthusiasm for trees, streams, birds, and their nest, sunshine, clouds, and stormy skies. Nor did they enjoy what they considered the hard work connected with Nikola's many boyhood inventions. He was constantly engaged in experiments that often failed, a fact which made them all the more fascinating. In reviewing his life in later years, he could look back upon these many lines of investigation, which he had started as a boy, and see how they had led directly to some of his major inventions. As he grew to maturity, he displayed certain characteristics which might have revealed his Venusian origin had they been understood. His hands were unusually long, particularly his thumbs, and were extremely sensitive, carrying strong, clean, etheric currents. Inasmuch as he was clairvoyant, he could easily see the murky gray astral matter which exudes from the hands of the ordinary person, an effluvia of filth so sticky that it will adhere to the etheric structure of another person, even an individual occupying a body of high vibrations. For this reason, Tesla always dreaded shaking hands. He tried to avoid such contacts, even at the cost of being thought inconsiderate or impolite. On occasion, when it was absolutely necessary for him to shake hands with certain visitors in his New York office, he escaped at the earliest possible moment to his private washroom, where he thoroughly washed his hands, drying them on a clean towel, which was handed to him by his secretary and used only once. He had the deep-set, piercing eyes of the initiate, clear blue in color. He also breathed correctly, something an earth person seldom achieves. This was a natural faculty, for as a small child he discovered that by breathing deeply he was overcome by a feeling of lightness in his body. He felt so weightless that he concluded he would be able to fly if he developed the will to do so. It is said that he did not know he was unusual in this respect while he was still a child. Tesla could leave his body at will when he grew older. He always lived in hotels, and his orders were that he was never to be disturbed in his locked room. Tesla used projected consciousness, as do all initiates, although this is not to be confused with the type of astral projection practiced by the average person. The initiate uses many types of etheric energies freely and in a manner which is always spiritually correct. The ordinary individual does not have the ability to utilize these energies or even to contact them, and therefore easily falls into the dangerous practice of using astral or lower mental forces. This leads to the next step on the left-hand path, the state of trance mediumship. When Tesla was a small boy and found that his rhythmic breathing gave him a feeling that he could fly, he quite naturally and normally began to practice levitation. In this is a profound lesson for all of us, and it is the same lesson that Jesus stressed. Jesus warned us that we should not accept appearances, if those appearances might prove limiting to us. We are always imitating that which we see about us. We see people growing older, so we grow older. If everyone thought of growing younger and youth began to manifest all about us, we would grow younger in appearance as a matter of course. We see people walking, so we walk. Young Nikola saw people walking, but he knew in his heart that it was a cumbersome and laborious method, so he pondered over it and got the feeling that he could fly. Then he followed his own inner feeling, not the example set by appearances all about him. He rose from the earth, levitated, and moved through space freely. It might have startled unsuspecting New Yorkers to see Tesla take off like his companion, the white dove, and fly over the city. But those who understand levitation and use it can also throw a cloak of invisibility about themselves. People jump to strange conclusions about what they thought were the eccentricities of a great scientist. Another great one by the name of Jesus walked on water and the curious are still talking about it today. Tesla well knew that it was the better part of wisdom to remain invisible when he had his feet off the ground, so to speak. Some of his close associates knew that he could levitate and respected the confidence. It might be well to underscore a point here. The person who levitates by using his Christ principle to do so must have a purpose behind his action, and it must be a purpose which is in some way furthering the divine plan. It is not spiritually permissible to levitate merely as a form of entertainment for oneself or for others. Levitation is correctly used only if one is definitely going somewhere for a definite reason in the service of humanity. The average individual moves according to his own whim and pleasure, and usually to satisfy some personal objective, which is often unnecessary. The average person moves about because of restlessness and an inherent inability to work according to any plan, let alone the divine plan. The limitations of walking have offered certain advantages in the past. Transportation was so difficult that people tended to remain quiet as much as possible, or if they did go on a walking journey, they often utilized the time to commune with nature or their fellow men. But the advent of the automobile, bus, plane, and train has introduced a method of transportation which adds only noise, confusion, and chaos to the general picture, and which constantly exposes the emotional body to jarring impacts of a most distressing sort. When Nikola was 5 years of age, he designed and installed a water wheel across a mountain brook near his home in Semja. He utilized a disc cut from a tree trunk by lumber workers, some small branches, sticks, and rocks. The device was a wonderful success from the standpoint of the young inventor. It was a bit crude, but it rotated. He had used the methods of antiquity in designing his model, and it was only much later that he discovered that water wheels have paddles, but his wheel operated without paddles. The water wheel was his first demonstration of a lesson he never forgot: to utilize free energy, which was being constantly and freely replaced by nature. Later, perhaps as a direct result of this experiment as a 5-year-old boy, he developed the smooth disc turbine. Later, too, he carried his experiments in utilizing the free energy of nature into the atmosphere, and there he found that electricity in unlimited abundance would give him unlimited power, free energy that would carry mankind itself to freedom from the great curse of grueling labor. This was Tesla's magnificent concept that dominated his every thought as an inventor: free energy for a free world. It was the concept that carried him to the heights of cosmic fellowship, and the one mighty flame of inspiration which he set before his disciples as an eternal beacon: free energy to make and keep the people free. When he was 9 years old, he designed his first motor. It was made from tiny pieces of wood and shaped somewhat like a windmill, but it was not powered by the wind. It was powered by June bugs flying round and round, trying to detach their feet from the glue which held them fast to their duties. An incident took place at this time which clearly indicated the clean and wholesome trend of Tesla's thinking. He used June bugs because he needed to somehow capture power from the air, although the bugs might have been happier had they not been drafted for this service. But Nikola used bugs just as a plowman would use horses. However, a little companion came in to observe the motor. He spied a reserved supply of June bugs, which Nikola had placed in a small jar, and the child grabbed a handful of the bugs and ate them. Nikola was so sickened by the event that he set the remaining bugs free and never again utilized bug power. This was his first direct step toward capturing power from the air without enslavement of animal or human labor. It was also at this time when he was finishing his elementary studies and entering the gymnasium for more advanced schoolwork that he first came to grips with his occult power of working in the fourth ether. He had only to think of an object, and it would appear before him, exhibiting the normal appearance of mass, solidity, and dimensions. He had discussed this matter in a confidence with his mother, for he found the ability to be a nuisance rather than an asset, and he wished to be rid of it. Whether or not his mother could explain it was never revealed. Now, in retrospect, it seems that she herself probably possessed the same power and understood it thoroughly. But Nicola was still a child, and his mother agreed with him that he should attempt to banish the visions if he wished. From the occult point of view, this was the correct thing to do, for no adult person should ever try to influence a child or tamper with the child's efforts to come to grips with spiritual realities. This kind of tampering has proved to be the great curse of churchianity and one of the most dangerous of the black magic practices. A little later, Nicola confided to his mother that he wished to keep and use the power to envision objects before him, but that he wished to bring it under complete control. Again, his mother agreed with him. The power to work in the fourth ether, a physical substance which forms the plane of density just a little finer than gas, is a power possessed in full by every advanced initiate. They also work freely in the third, second, and first ethers, which together with the lower four, physical, liquid, gaseous, and the fourth ether, form the seven ethers, which comprise the entire plane of matter. Scientists have not worked with the ethers because they could not see them, and it is not generally realized that the dense physical plane is only concretized ether. There is nothing mystical about working in the finer ethers. In fact, it is a scientific shortcut. There is actually no reason to dig gold out of the earth and then process it. It is much easier to extract it from the ether and precipitate it on the physical plane. But in an earlier chapter of this book, it was explained that after the laggards came, man lost his power to precipitate matter, for he lost the use of the rays. Today, on the inner planes where the lords of karma work, the whole plane of re-embodiment has been changed to bring it into line with needs for the new age civilization. Greater selectivity is practiced, and many children are now being born who have the ability to work in the fourth ether, as did Nikola Tesla. Therefore, the whole subject is one which should be thoroughly explored by scientists, teachers, and parents, if these adults wish to understand New Age children and participate in the civilization which they will produce. It has been stated by the spiritual hierarchy that within 300 years the entire race will be telepathic and will possess etheric vision. These are natural human unfoldments following the normal course of evolution, which is now being guided on the physical plane once again by the hierarchy. The race is moving forward in evolution, in a manner of speaking, but at the same time we are striving to get back to a point at which we stood 19 million years ago. It is that point that each of us must attain during the Aquarian age. Then from that point each will move forward swiftly toward the ascension and go on to new evolutionary assignments on other stars. At this particular time, it is most essential that the general public become informed about etheric vision and telepathy, for there is much dangerous confusion on the subject. This is planned confusion, engineered down to the last degree by the forces of darkness. Such confusion does not exist in the minds of those who are serving the light. It exists in the minds of the bewildered masses because of their inability to exercise discrimination. They listen to the press, the preachers, and the teachers, and swallow whatever happens to appeal to their basic desire nature. Thus do the dark forces brainwash the masses. into a lethargic state of docility. The masses follow along like sheep to the slaughter. The powers possessed by Nikola Tesla were in no sense psychic powers. The ability to see into the fourth ether, to mold the etheric substance into machinery as did Tesla, and then to test that etheric machinery and make any necessary adjustments as did Tesla. All of this has nothing whatever to do with the astral plane. The astral plane is man-made. Astral matter is filthy matter. Tesla struck right through the astral plane and had no contact with it. As author H. Matthews has truly stated, when Tesla wanted something, he went straight to God. In these dangerous times, that advice is the best possible. When we want something, we should go straight to God and talk to Him about it. Today there are hundreds, if not millions, of people who have responded to ancient, decadent, Atlantean vibrations. The reason for this is because certain sections of the submerged continent are to be brought up in the very near future. When Atlantis went down, 3 cities were sealed. These cities will soon be brought up to the surface of the Atlantic and will be used as exhibits of Atlantean culture. This is one of the projects which is being handled by the angelic kingdom under the direction of Saint Germain in his capacity as Lord of Civilization. The response to ancient Atlantean vibrations is a dangerous response. Human beings mistakenly feel that the ability to see into astral matter is a sign of the advanced initiate. An initiate possesses powers which enable him to stand on this earth and yet observe incidents on Venus or Mars. He can also look out over the earth and sweep the entire scene with one glance. He can look through the earth and watch activities within the dense physical globe. Thus it will be realized that the initiate is completely free. He can see above as below. The person with astral vision is a prisoner of his own limited and highly questionable power. If he has the ability to see... hold on. Okay, doggy, come here. Sorry about that. If he has the ability to see auras, colors, and so forth, what of it? Usually he uses the power merely to satisfy personal curiosity in exactly the same way that he uses the power of speech to indulge in gossip. When an initiate looks out over the universe, you may be certain that he has some excellent reason for doing so. He may carefully inspect the aura of a disciple in order to determine the corrections needed. He may inspect the aura of a great city to determine the spiritual strength of the populace. But along the way, he does not stop to watch a football game or look over the latest bargains in the shopping marts. On the other hand, the person with astral vision is not only subject to normal distractions of physical eyesight, but he is subjected to the constant nervous impact of additional colors, movements, and so forth. Peace of mind and serenity of soul do not lie along that route, nor can the voice of the silence be heard within the beating heart of the unlighted ones who amuse themselves with such nonsense. Astral vision is more often a sign of regression than of advancement, for it simply denotes the attainment of certain animal characteristics. It must be remembered that all animals in certain advanced groups, dogs, cats, horses, and elephants, have astral vision. Many other animals also possess it, and most animals are telepathic within certain limits. In humans, this type of clairvoyance is often associated with solar plexus telepathy, another animal characteristic. Many persons who use solar plexus telepathy are inclined to confuse it with mental telepathy, and those who practice mental telepathy are frequently unaware that the only type of telepathy which can be considered as a spiritual power is from soul to soul or from an ascended master to soul. The soul referred to here is the I Am presence who overshadows us, or the Christ self who abides in the heart flame. Individuals who strive to cultivate their astral abilities, even though they may be born with them, are following an extremely dangerous course, and one which can lead easily from psychism to black magic, and from black magic to insanity. If an individual is born with psychic powers, he should either banish them at all cost, or he should take up the proper study which will enable him to serve the forces of light to the limit of his capacity. These astral conditions are karmic. Now the dog wants out. Go. Oh, dang. Sorry about that. It's hard to make a video in a household with things going on. I'll start over there. These astral conditions are karmic, but if properly channeled, they can lead to discipleship. If they are not properly channeled, they can and will lead only to mediumship and misery. Mediumship is the way of retrogression. Discipleship is the way to the path of truth, light, beauty, and unlimited cosmic freedom. Each individual has only one rule to follow, and this is it. Place yourself at all times under the full power and protection of your own God presence, your Christ self, our soul, for your own higher self is your first and best teacher. There is no need to be running around the Himalayas or elsewhere searching for a guru or master. When you are ready to be of service to the hierarchy, your own master, and he will be an ascended master, will seek you out. Intuitively, of course, not physically, and you will not have to worry about being kept busy in the service of the light. There is plenty to do. It is the soul or Christ self that comes into incarnation, not the physical body or the emotions or the lower concrete mind. The soul builds these lower vehicles for convenience and in accordance with the pattern of karma carried over from previous embodiments. Therefore, the soul should at all times be permitted to train and use the lower vehicles according to the purpose designated in the divine plan. The part which Nikola Tesla was to play in the divine plan unfolded quickly when he enrolled at the gymnasium at Gospic, a large town in which his father had been assigned as a minister. He discovered that his favorite subject was mathematics. So intense was his devotion to this study that his teachers had to overlook his loathing for freehand drawing. It was thought that Nikola was unhappy about drawing because he was left-handed at that time. Eventually, he became ambidextrous, another mark of the initiate.